Did you hear that?
And hello and welcome to Haunting Live podcast. This is our second podcast this weekend. Thank you guys very much if you tuned in and catched our first show this weekend, which was yesterday. We have that posted up on our social media on Facebook. You can go check that out. It was a very interesting show, and we're very thankful to have been able to have our guest on for yesterday's topic. And you can go check that out if you missed yesterday's show. But today we're back for our second podcast this weekend on a regular scheduled day, and we're back here today again for episode number 24 of season 2. And today we're going to be talking to a past guest that has been on our show before, and she's graciously agreed to come back on and talk a little bit more today. So we thank her for coming on. Her name is Tina, the Moonstone medium, and she's going to be talking today a little bit about what Reiki is, how she does Reiki, and also what medical Reiki is, something that we have not had on the show here yet. So it's going to be a very interesting topic to talk about today. But thank you everybody for tuning in so much, and also for following us on social media. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and also you can catch us on the podcast apps if you missed the live show right here on our social media. So with that, let's get right into the show today and bring back in Tina. Hi, Tina.
Hi, Trevor. How are you?
Oh, doing wonderful. A little tired. We had a double show this weekend, but thank you so much for coming on the regular show here this week for this episode today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. So how have things been lately with you?
Busy. Yeah. Well, aside from the Reiki, I also do mediumship readings and intuitive readings. So that's been quite busy in the last while.
Oh, that's great. So things have been picking up for you a little bit. Probably the summer's coming. People want some more information about certain things. So that's great.
Yeah.
But today's topic, you agreed to talk about Reiki and what Reiki is, especially the topic of medical Reiki.
Yeah.
Let's start at the beginning, though, of how you got into Reiki and how you developed your own method of doing Reiki. So.
Okay. So initially, actually, I had been on a journey looking at mediumship, and a friend of mine was just starting her Reiki journey and asked if I would participate. And I had never had Reiki before. So at that time, when I did have Reiki, she'd suggested to me that I should be doing it. I should be also doing Reiki. And a friend of mine that I had gone to high school with, we had been really good friends in high school. He's been a Reiki master for many years. And so I connected with him and said, I really want you to teach me my level 1 Reiki. So I trekked down to my hometown in Windsor, so about 4 hours away, to have my level 1 with him. And so he really started me on that journey. And then I got my level 2 after that. I had been attending Reiki Shares. So Reiki Shares is an opportunity for Reiki practitioners to gather together and give each other Reiki as a practice. So I was attending monthly Reiki Shares, got to meet several Reiki practitioners, and found my level 2 Reiki teacher, and then I did my master's level with third person. And normally people will go through all the levels with the same teacher. It was just, in terms of my path, that's not how it happened. And I always feel very blessed and very grateful to all of them for what they were able to provide me with. Yeah. And then in terms of the medical Reiki piece, so the interesting thing about that, so when I had my level 2, at that time, my level 1 instructor, Dave from Windsor, had told me about Raven Keys, and So Raven Keys was a medical, or is a medical Reiki practitioner in New York City, and she had been training medical Reiki practitioners throughout the states, and she was finally coming to Ontario. So the interesting thing about that was when she came to Ontario to teach, she only came to two places to teach that year. So she went to Windsor, my hometown, and my friend David got to be one of the first trained under her in Ontario. And then she came to my current town of Orangeville, and also taught there. So my level two teacher also became a medical Reiki practitioner at the same time. At the time, I only had my level two. You have to have your master's level in order to um, go on with the medical Reiki certification. So I wasn't able to participate in that, but I did get to meet Raven Keys because she also did a book signing. She had her second book had come out on Reiki, and so I got a chance to meet her. But I just always thought at that point, what are the odds of of her teaching in just those two places that have such significance for me. And so I always knew at some point in the future I needed to get my training through her, and so I did. Last year I was trained. I trained with Raven to get my medical Reiki certification.
That sounds wonderful. Like it was just a
Yeah,
coincidence that she was in both of your cities that you're able to get to. So it was like I guess your guides are guiding you to the right areas for sure.
absolutely.
You're speaking about levels. Maybe for those people
Hmm.
that don't understand the in depth of Reiki and what's involved in reaching the certain levels, can you go through the levels and just sort of explain how you start and what you can get to in levels?
Sure. So I always say, first of all, when you are ready to become a Reiki practitioner, your teacher will just show up, for you, right? Like, when the student's ready, the teacher always shows up. So that's first and foremost. So you want to make sure that you go to you're taught by somebody that you're drawn to. And so with level one Reiki is really for yourself. So it's really basic in terms of knowing what the chakras are, knowing the hand positions, being able um, to know how to position your hands in order to give self Reiki as well. And then when you move on to level two, it really focuses more on being able to provide Reiki to others. And so, again, going through all of the different positions, from your head to your feet, around, how to hold your hands, how to, where to position them, like all of the main chakras. So going through those main ones, and and as well as talking about distance Reiki. So when you go to level two, you are also given symbols as well. So you're given three symbols. There's a power symbol, an emotional symbol, and then there's a distance symbol, which allows you to do distance Reiki. And because everything is energy, I could be present in my home and and provide somebody in somebody else's home with distance Reiki, sending that intention, knowing that they're open and wanting to receive it. You always get permission first to do that, but when you've got that permission, then the Reiki just flows, like that energy flows between those two people. So you also, so that's how the distance Reiki can come in as well. So you're given those three symbols at the level two, and then when you really should practice at the level two for a little while before you move on to your master's level. Some people will also, some teachers will have a third level in there. Others will not have that third level and just incorporate the information that would be in the third level into the master's level. So at the master's level, you're given more symbols, and including learning how to attune other people to Reiki. So once you become a master Reiki practitioner, you can also you are also able to teach others Reiki and attune them to the various levels. And there are attunements at every level. So even at the level 1, you would be initially attuned to Reiki as well. It just helps I mean, everybody has the ability to be able to practice Reiki, but it really strengthens that ability when you have an attunement that happens.
Right. So once you reach a certain level, you sort of gain these symbols and knowledge about what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you, I guess, get certified, you can move up the ladder, so to speak, to the next level where you get the next set of symbols.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
is that sort of like the same as chakra symbols where you're using the chakra throughout the body? Do they work together? Are they combined in any way?
Absolutely, you can definitely connect in with the chakras, and so some Reiki practitioners will visualize the chakras. I know for myself, if I'm working on a particular chakra, at times I will actually visualize the color of that chakra in order to really make it stronger, like provide a stronger energy, because I'm really focusing in on that chakra. And I do, when prior to giving anyone Reiki, I'm attuning my own chakras as well, because I want to make sure that I'm in balance, right? And one of the things that Reiki can do is balance out those chakras for you and make sure that everything is in alignment and everything is working well together. If there's a blockage in a particular chakra, then that's going to lead to some physical ailments that you may end up feeling, and even some emotional stuff. I find that, for instance, a lot of people have blocked throat chakras. And so a blocked throat chakra really indicates that you're not able to speak up for yourself. You're not being able to be very vocal. You're not able to express yourself well. So when you've got that blocked throat chakra, you can't stand up for yourself, and you can't speak your truth. So it's really important to be able to clear that in order to move forward. Mm.
Yeah, I agree totally. Actually, I've been diving into that topic myself lately and beginning on the
Mm-hmm.
journey of hopefully teaching others about the different chakras and
Mm-hmm.
teaching people that want to learn more on chakras just at a
Mm-hmm.
beginner's level of what that means. Like, I'm sort of that point myself, but I'm more growing into it. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping to draw others into it and be able to teach them some more about that
Yeah,
too. So
yeah, yeah.
um, you're just talking a little bit there too about chakras and being blocked and stuff like that. How do you personally, when you're having a client, detect the blocked chakras, and how do you unblock them?
Okay, so well, so a lot of what I do when I'm working with a client, I work intuitively, so I go to where I'm drawn. Some people will always start in a particular area, like they might always start at the head, or they may always start at the feet, and they'll just kind of, work their way either up or down. Or some people will start in the middle. I start wherever I'm drawn to start, and depending on what I feel is going on, I may spend more time in a particular area than in another area. In order to clear blockages, I will do a variety of things. So sometimes there are things that I'll do to expel that blockage, to clear that blockage. So it's really moving the negative energy away from that area, and being able to send it back down to the ground. So I will do that. The other thing I will often do is, so when I set up my Reiki table, I will create kind of like a vortex underneath the Reiki table. I will open that up so that everything negative will end up going, kind of like a drain, right? Like, so it's sort of like draining away that negative, all of the negative pieces. And then at the, once I've finished with that client, I close that up so that it doesn't come back out again. But it's, so that's a visualization that I will do before actually starting with an intent. But then as I'm clearing blockages, it's really kind of, it's just visualizing moving that energy away, moving that negative energy away, and then sealing in the positive energy, using one of the symbols, one of the Reiki symbols that I have, or sometimes more than one, in order to help clear that. And I also will a lot of times to step back and provide some cleansing of the aura as well, depending on what they need around that too. So, we have our aura as well that can get, if you imagine, like, I mean, your aura should feel clear, but most of the time, if you imagine, when you start out your day, you always feel much lighter at the beginning of the day than you do at the end of the day. At the end of the day, you've been in contact with other people, so you're picking up some of those energies, you're picking up the stresses of the day. And then as the day goes by, towards the end of the day, suddenly you feel almost like you've got this weight on top of you. And that's really like you're, like absorbing all the energies of the day, right? So by cleansing that aura really it helps to clear away all of that stuff that attaches onto you. And especially if you're really empathic, you pick up a lot of stuff. If you're really good at picking up other people's energy levels, you're a collector of that stuff's going to just as much of the negative stuff is going to cling to you as the positive. So it's learning how to let that stuff go. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that clears up a lot. I think how people may understand better how you actually unblock, because the people that are getting into the subject of chakras and stuff, I think
Mm-hmm.
understand a little bit about it, but they don't fully understand, okay, how do I get to that end step of actually clearing them and making them better? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Yeah.
was some grateful insight there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Another thing I want to ask you about the chakras, how they work with Reiki, is the crystals.
Yeah.
There's certain stones and crystals that work with different chakras. So, do you use any stones or crystals when you do Reiki work?
I I have on occasion used. I have a couple of wands. I have a selenite wand that I will use at times. But to tell you the truth, even though I love crystals and I use them in a lot of other ways, I personally don't use a lot of crystals in my Reiki work, but I do know other practitioners who will regularly put crystals on the various chakras. So depending on, and again, that's something that intuitively you're drawn to. You know what, I'm going to pick this crystal for this person, and use it there. What I will use crystals for is more of a cleansing of my table beforehand as well, because I always make sure I've got that I've always got like black tourmaline, and I've got some clear quartz on my table as well, just to kind of keep that keep it protected, right, in terms of the energy levels. Yeah, so that's yeah, I personally don't use crystals, but I do think crystals are great, and I would love to incorporate them more in that work in the future. So it is an interest of mine to start doing that. Yeah.
I think it's beneficial to have crystals, like you said, especially
Mm-hmm.
to cleanse your area before you start any treatment like Reiki, or
Mm-hmm.
to actually help cleanse the person's or your clients' like
Mm-hmm.
chakra points or any of their aura afterwards. That would help, I think, to because there's certain crystals that work with certain body parts, like your
Yes.
chakra areas. So I think it is beneficial to do that too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's move
absolutely.
on now to the topic of medical Reiki.
Hmm.
A lot of people might not know what that is, so let's start at the beginning with that as well, and just sort of describe in general what medical Reiki is all about.
So medical Reiki practitioners will go into they provide Reiki to patients um, pre-op, during surgery, and post-op. So typically throughout that entire process, they're present with the patient. So firstly, in order to again, to become a medical Reiki practitioner, you need to have your master's level first, and you need to be trained. And currently, the only person I know who is really doing certified training and who is renowned in the area is Raven Keys in New York. Um, and she has trained a few people to become teachers as well. But the first step is really that the patient wants somebody who is a medical Reiki practitioner to assist them through that surgery, through that journey of that surgery. And so they can either reach out directly to a medical Reiki practitioner, or if they don't know one, there is a roster of medical Reiki practitioners through Raven. So they can contact her institute, and she will provide information to them, depending on where they're residing. Then the next step, and this is the hardest step, is to get approval from the surgeon. So, in order for a medical Reiki practitioner to be in the operating room during a surgery, the surgeon needs to give his or her approval. So a surgeon needs to be okay with that piece. If they are not okay with it, then it doesn't happen. However, even if I'm not able to be in the operating room, I can potentially still be present either pre-op, so prior to the surgery. Again, with approval. So sometimes the surgeon will be okay with with a medical Reiki practitioner attending the hospital and sitting with the patient until they have to go in and do the prep for surgery. And then sometimes they'll also be okay with you being available post-op, to provide some Reiki to the patient afterwards as well. And even if you're not there during the surgery, there's still great benefits to being there either at the beginning or at the end, because it's very calming for the patient. First of all, right? They've got a support person who is there just for them, just constantly sending them Reiki, constantly. And anybody who has had a Reiki session knows that you feel very calm afterwards, right? Like, it really reduces your stress levels. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's something that, because it activates that, it really helps. That's for all of the scientists and the and if there are any doctors watching, that's what it does. That's what Reiki does. So it really does help and provide a calming effect for patients at the beginning of that process. And then there's also been a lot of people have given feedback, including medical professionals have given feedback that when they're aware that a patient has had Reiki post-op, they're healing faster. So for whatever reason, it seems to be speeding up the healing process for people. So they're noticing they're not needing as many pain medications as they might otherwise. And during the surgery as well, if you're allowed in the room during surgery, it helps to maintain steady blood pressure for that Reiki patient. as well. So it maintains a steady blood pressure for them, maintains, sometimes these rooms can be quite cold. So, operating rooms are very, very cold. And depending on the surgery, sometimes they have to keep them very cold. But because of the warmth associated with Reiki, when you're providing Reiki, and I know from the many Reiki shares I've attended, when there's a bunch of us together all providing Reiki to each other, and there's a few of us in the room starts getting very, very warm. So likewise, when you're in an operating room, it seems to raise the temperature in the operating room a couple of degrees, which is just enough to really kind of help to keep the patient at a level that makes it easier for the surgeons to be working with them, right? So, and when you are in the operating room, so a medical Reiki practitioner is trained to stay out of the way. So we're not going to be, like we're basically sitting behind the head of the person. So the anesthesiologist will sit at the head to monitor the patient and make sure that they're still breathing and all of those kinds of things are happening. And the medical Reiki practitioner sits beside the anesthesiologist at the head, very, very lightly touching the patient's head. You also need to be very, very conscientious that you're not moving the head at all, because they need to stay very, very still. And that anesthesiologist is holding the patient's life in their hands, really, right? In order to keep them, to make sure that they're okay. So, so it's very important as a medical Reiki practitioner that I'm very cognizant of that fact, and I stay back. And then if something happens and I need to move, I move out of the way. It's immediate, right? Like it's not, I jump out of the way and they do what they need to do. So just being cognizant about that throughout that entire process. Yeah. And the interesting thing is too, is that people who have had a medical Reiki practitioner in the room with them, even the rest of the surgical team that's present, so the doctors and the nurses, notice they're calmer as well, right? Like it's like they can feel that energy within the room, and it helps keep their stress levels down as well during that surgery. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's benefits all around to that because
Mm-hmm.
not only the patient will begin the healing process faster, but they'll be more stable during surgery if you're in the room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you just said, even the doctors will probably feel a sense of less stress and more
Mm-hmm.
calm when they're doing the surgery. So hopefully the studies will come out and continue on so that people can actually see these results and
Yeah.
then be brought to the hospitals in Ontario more and be more involved in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So Dr. Feldman, who actually did the foreword for Raven's most recent book, she just had a book come out a few weeks ago. It's available on Amazon on strictly on medical Reiki. And so Dr. Feldman, who she's worked with for years in New York, is in the midst of doing some extensive studies to really try to streamline medical Reiki as a as as important as some other types of therapies might be. Yeah, so hopefully things will shift and change. And there's already quite a number of us throughout Ontario who are medical Reiki practitioners, and I would say even throughout Canada, that there are a number of medical Reiki practitioners who are really wanting to be more involved to assist and to help. Luckily, hospices. There are several hospices that are now allowing Reiki practitioners in the hospices. So those are other options as well. Or if you have a patient who may be undergoing chemotherapy, just being present and supportive to them through that process too. A medical Reiki practitioner can help with those patients as well. So there's lots of ways that a medical Reiki practitioner can be really helpful in that healing journey for patients.
Yeah, I guess there would be more options out there than just a hospital that could use that
Hmm.
service as well. I didn't think
Hmm.
of the hospice being one of them too, but I guess people need that
Hmm.
calming during that process as well. So maybe
Yes,
even
yes.
funeral homes too might be a place that people could use a practitioner like yourself. So
Yeah, absolutely.
anybody
Absolutely.
going through grieving or anything like that, like even I was
Hmm.
thinking psychiatry too would be a good place as well. So
Hmm.
people
Yeah,
that have
yeah,
like stress issues or things like
yeah,
that are bothering them that they go to see a psychiatrist for,
yeah.
that could also be beneficial too.
And even working with, parents of children who have a very significant illness that they're going through, because they need that support as well, right? Yeah.
Or even right now, what everybody in the world pretty much is going through, which is stress and
Mm.
anxiety and unsure of the
Yes.
future and everything else. I think
Yes.
everybody would benefit from some or some Reiki treatment right now too. So
Absolutely.
so are you yourself right now working in that field? Is that something that you're focusing on at all? Or are you in learning some more research? Are you in there trying to figure out things for the hospitals?
So, unfortunately, because of COVID, they're not, they're not really letting anybody into the hospital. So, trying to get into, I mean, they're not even letting loved ones in a lot of times, right? So this is something that certainly will need to, we've taken a back step until post COVID, and then hopefully, once things open up more, then being able to really advocate and educate throughout Ontario. There has been some of that's happened, obviously pre-pandemic, in terms of trying to get people in. And I do know a couple of Reiki practitioners who have had the opportunity to have done some work in the hospital, even if it hasn't been during surgery, either pre-op or post-op. And one of them actually is uh, talks about her story in and she's in Canada. She talks about her story in Raven's latest book as well. So it's happening. It's changing. It's just unfortunately with COVID, it's placed a halt to that. So I haven't been able to personally, reach out to hospitals at this point, just because they're focused on other things right now. So yeah.
Yeah, and duly noted as well, for sure.
Hmm.
But hopefully, the downtime will give people a chance to go over the data and some benefits and get everything,
Hmm.
together more. And once we're out of COVID, that you guys can go back in and show the benefits of Reiki and stuff in the hospital area. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And it'll be really interesting once Dr. Feldman's research is complete as well, because I think that will be really helpful. A lot of doctors, until they actually see it in action, they really don't know or don't understand how it can possibly work. But I am aware of stories of doctors who've actually talked about the benefits that they've seen anecdotally for their patients, right? Mhm.
that's, I mean, as long as somebody out there is doing that benefit research and finding out what helps people afterwards, I think it's going to be beneficial and just grow more in Ontario and hopefully around the world too, that people will get more into that as a practice in the hospitals for sure. I've heard of it
Yeah,
before, like in the past, I've heard of people going in and doing Reiki in the hospitals, so I think it's a great idea.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think they should become as commonplace as anybody else, really. And one of the reasons why Dr. Feldman is doing this research is because he wants medical Reiki practitioners to be included in health benefit plans. So that would be amazing if that was something that was looked at down the line in Ontario as well, just to make it more affordable for everyone. Mm.
Well, I think the benefits outweigh the risks because, like you said during
Mm.
talking to you today, that patients heal faster and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see why it wouldn't be beneficial for doctors to want patients to heal faster, to get better
Yeah,
faster, not be in the hospitals as often,
yeah,
and
yeah,
there's just more benefits to it, I think, than not. So hopefully it's something
yeah,
that will grow.
yeah.
But how difficult is it to reach a medical practitioner stage? Like you were saying, there's the different levels you have to go to.
Yeah.
Is it really difficult to reach that medical stage?
So once you've had so once you've completed your master's level in Reiki, then you can apply for certification through Raven Keys uh, to get your medical Reiki certification. And really, it's just so it's a course that you take, and that course is very. It's she's not teaching Reiki, so she you already know everything else that you need to know in order to reach that master's level. So she's not going through any of those basics. She's not talking about chakras. She's not talking about how you give Reiki to people. What she's really focused on is the nuts and bolts and the practical aspects of what you need to know from start to finish in terms of being pre-op, in the operating room, and post-op. And so that's where her focus is really in terms of what you need to wear, in terms of like, because obviously you need to also be provided with surgical wear as well in order to be in the operating room. So she talks about that. She talks about specifically giving Reiki, chemo patients Reiki as well. She'll talk about just in terms of being in the operating room, what to expect, so that you're well prepared for anything that may happen, right? In terms of what to expect, because some of it can be, even though I mean, typically there's a screen up, so typically you're not going to see anything, but you could potentially, so you could see lots of stuff that maybe you may not want to see. So really preparing you for that piece of it as well as talking about just uh, how to advocate for the patients if the patients are really wanting practitioner there, and how to really explain to the surgeons what you're really there for, because it's really also important to develop that relationship with the surgeons, with the anesthesiologists, and anesthesiologists get really I mean, because their job is so important in terms of keeping patients safe. They There's a discomfort there in terms of knowing that there might be somebody else sitting beside them, right? And so it's important for those professionals to be aware that we're trained in knowing that we need to stay out of the way, and knowing not to impede that surgery, that whatever's happening, and that we're only there to support the patient, as best we can, and with as little um, contact as we can, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there has to
So
be a certain comfort level
mhm,
there in the surgery
mhm,
area for sure with the
yeah,
doctors and yourself both. So you have to be
yeah,
comfortable with surgery setting, but the doctor has to be
yeah,
comfortable that you're not going to interfere in
yeah,
any way with the actual
yeah,
procedure. So yeah,
yeah. And that's really what the training is all about. The training is really just to prepare you for that piece, right? In terms of like from start to finish, what you need to know around those pieces. And um, so yeah, it's a great training. She has over 20 years of experience working in operating rooms. Yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing that she has that much experience that she could pass along. So,
that's
um,
right.
how how do you get in contact with her? Like, is she actually taking people to do this kind of thing, or is that something that's going to be done later on?
Absolutely. She's absolutely doing online. She's doing online trainings right now. So it's interesting. So initially, I had signed up. Uh, so in at the end of 2019, I was suddenly feeling this incredible push to bump up my training. So there was a number of things that I ended up doing. One of them was signing up for her training for 2020. And I was actually supposed to travel down to New York in August of 2020 for her training session. And of course, COVID hit and everything was shut down. And so I was messaging her back and forth, what are you going to do about the training? Because I didn't want to book a hotel room, but I thought, I don't know, I don't think this is going away anytime soon. And so she decided to try an online course. So I was in that. I think I was in that first. It was that first online course that she did, and so typically, so she typically will not take any master's level Reiki practitioners who have not been attuned in person. But yeah, but she did a medical Reiki attunement online, so which was beautiful. Like it was just amazing how we could all feel the energy in the room online, and I think everyone will attest to that. It was really quite beautiful. And so we did that online training instead. And she's continued to train people online. And even when she goes back to doing in person training, she's probably going to continue to also do online trainings because now she's training people, all over the world right now. So I think one of her more recent trainings was with some people in Scotland. So she's training. She is so it's Raven Keys Medical Reiki International. And so if you Google her, you Google Raven Keys, you find out that information. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
for sure, we'll post up her information on the podcast here today on
yeah.
with a link or something if she has a link to her
Hmm.
information, and share that
Hmm.
for sure. It really sounds interesting. I think people might be interested in progressing their Reiki because I know a lot of people are
Hmm.
into Reiki, but they might
Yes,
not know about how high they can go. They can might not even know about that they can do medical Reiki too. So I think that's really
absolutely.
interesting. So,
Yeah, yeah. It's fantastic. And her latest book is on Amazon right now as well. So it's available. Yeah, and it's yeah, she's fantastic. She was actually at Ground Zero, giving Reiki to the firefighters and the police officers, to all of the frontline people working at Ground Zero in 9/11, during 9/11. Yeah, yeah.
oh, that's wonderful. I did not know that
Hmm.
too, so that's cool.
Hmm.
Okay, so what else have you been working on lately as projects go? Do you have anything that you'd like to share with us about mediumship or anything that you've been working on?
Well, I've been doing a lot of mediumship readings and a lot of intuitive readings. So yeah, I've been booking usually around, 3 weeks in advance, three weeks to a month in advance now. So I'm getting quite a few people connecting with me around that. I'm also sort of toying with the idea of maybe also starting to do some online mediumship parties, because I really miss that aspect. So I used to do a lot of group readings, so people would have a party and they'd invite me over, and I would do group readings for people. And I really am missing that. That was always a lot of fun to do. A 2-hour group reading at a party, and bring lots of lots of people through. So I'm sort of toying with maybe starting to offer that as an option for people as well, if they would like to do that, via Zoom, in the interim, because I don't know how the rest of this year is going to look. I'm hoping we'll be open by fall, but you never know. So yeah, so looking at that as an option, because I really do love that, like that group energy that you get from doing these group readings. So that's one thing sort of on the horizon. Yeah,
Yeah, who knows how much longer this will last for sure. We're
yeah,
hoping to get back to things by summer and fall as well. So
yes,
we have our event coming up here in the fall too that we have planned. So it's going to be
yes,
our first post-pandemic event. Hopefully, we can still have it
yeah,
by. It's going to be on Halloween weekend. So
yeah.
looking forward to that too. So
That's going to be exciting. That's with
yeah,
Marianne.
hopefully there's no
Joy.
restrictions this time. But
Yes.
if there
Yeah.
is, we'll abide by anything that's out there, of course. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tina, so much for being here and talking about Reiki and the different things that go into Reiki, and especially the information you provided about medical Reiki, because I found that really interesting. I know that it's out there, I've heard of it before, but I just didn't know like how in depth it can go. So thank you for sharing those details today.
Oh, thank you for having me again, Trevor. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, and thank you very much again, and we'll have you back on later on as well. So
Okay.
take
Wonderful.
care and have a great weekend.
You too.
Okay,
Okay.
bye bye.
Bye.
And that was Tina, the Moonstone medium. She was joining us today to talk a little bit about Reiki and the different types of Reiki that there are. A lot of people know about Reiki and what it does as healing touch therapy, but there is also medical Reiki that she filled us in on here today, and I think it's very fascinating. So I hope you did too. Just before we let you guys go here today, thank you very much for tuning in, first of all, and hope you enjoyed our double podcast weekend. It was definitely different for us here, and it was great to be able to have two guests on this weekend. If you missed yesterday's show, it's still posted on social media, on Facebook as YouTube as well. So it was a guest that we had in from Nebraska, the Omaha Reservation, and Barry, part of the Res Squatching Research, and he does investigations on the cryptid Sasquatch. And it's a topic that is rooted to us here. We've had different experiences with that cryptid, different areas, and we want to have an expert to come on and talk a little bit about that. And we just happened to have met him and thought it was a great opportunity for him to be on our show. Since he is native down there on the reserve, they obviously have a lot of different insight to different things down there. So it was a great chance to talk about that. Great podcast. Go check that out. It is episode number 23, season 2. And today is episode number 24. So back-to-back podcasts. Thank you so much again for following us on social media and sharing our posts. It helps us out a lot as well. So liking is good, but sharing is great. Don't forget to share our posts and check things out as we get them up there. If you miss a live show here on Facebook, we do post the actual podcast to YouTube as well as the YouTube premiere the same day, so you can check that out around 11 o'clock at night on YouTube later on if you miss a live show. Or if you miss both of those, you can actually listen to the live show as well on the podcast apps if you want to tune in later on if you missed the live show on social media. So that's about it here today, guys. As usual, don't forget there's Ghost of the Queen's Inn 2021 coming up, which is on Halloween weekend. We have tickets available for that event on our website. Tickets are $140 for the whole weekend. It's a 2-day event, and it's a great event. It'll be our second annual this year, so that's on Halloween weekend. So go check that out under HauntingLivePodcast.com under the events tab. Also, you can go and check out Chris. He does readings here, angel readings, twice a week. He does Wednesdays at 8:30 and Saturdays at 3 o'clock. So feel free to send him messages ahead of time. He will read the messages that come in first to him. And he does also private readings too. So if you want a private booking, just don't forget to send in emails to him for a private booking reading as well from the angels. So with that, guys, that's about it for this weekend. It's been great having you here for both shows, but do take care, stay safe, and we'll catch you right back here next weekend. Thank you very much.
Did you hear that?